Blood dotted the polished tile like tiny red coins. Each drop slid outward in thin streaks across the floor of Arden City Continental Airport, where the cold blue lights made everything look harsher than it already was. People stood frozen. Others whispered. And through that wall of noise and judgment, a man was dragged as though he were nothing more than a problem to remove. His name was Dr. Malcolm Reeves, a black tech visionary, founder of Sentry Shield Cyber Defense, one of the fastest rising cybersecurity firms in North America. A man who once graced magazine covers, who lectured at universities about digital justice, who mentored young coders from underfunded neighborhoods. A man holding a boarding pass for Seat 1A, purchased weeks ago for the most important business meeting of his career. But right now, none of that mattered. His wrists were pinned behind him. His leather briefcase was kicked aside. His lip bled down his chin. The phones pointed at him were merciless, hungry minutes earlier. He had been seated comfortably in 1A, the premier window seat on Aerovista Airlines Flight 219, bound for the east coast city of Paxton Harbor. He had entered the aircraft like any other Diamond Tier member, quiet, focused, and ready to work. He had triple-checked his equipment. He had practiced his pitch. Everything was in order, until a man approached him, a tall man with flushed cheeks, a navy blazer, and a tone dripping with entitlement. "Hey there," he had said with a forced smile. "Mind giving me your seat? I always sit here." Dr. Reeves had looked up, calm and polite. "I'm sorry," he'd replied, "but I selected this seat and paid for it, so I'll be staying here." That simple sentence detonated everything. Within moments, two flight attendants appeared, then the purser, then the captain. Their words carried an air of authority, but their eyes carried hesitation, the kind that tries to hide behind procedures. The captain's voice cut sharp. "Sir, if you don't comply with our request, we'll have to remove you from the aircraft." Malcolm kept his voice level. "I'm sitting in the seat assigned to me. That's all I'm doing." Those words, steady, measured, seemed to enrage the entire system. Passengers turned, the cameras lifted. Silence thickened. Then the security officers arrived. He didn't resist. He didn't raise his voice. But one swift pull, one slip of balance, one impact with the overhead bin. And blood trickled down his face. 10 seconds. That was all it took to strip a man of dignity in front of 300 strangers. They dragged him through the aisle, passengers recoiling as if his presence tainted the space around him. His thoughts blurred between humiliation and a deep, hollow ache. Not for himself, but for memories he wished he didn't still carry. He remembered his mother working overnight shifts in a nursing home, wiping floors and patients' tears. He remembered his father detained outside their apartment for a theft he never committed. He remembered job interviews where his qualifications were debated, but his presence was doubted. He remembered the countless times he pretended not to notice the stares, the assumptions, the quiet little pauses that said, "You don't belong here." Even after building a billion-dollar company, after protecting federal agencies from cyber attacks, after being recognized as one of the most influential technologists of his generation, under the harsh airport lights, he became simply a black man. Someone decided shouldn't sit in seat 1A. Outside the terminal, his chief of staff, Maya Dalton, stood frozen as her phone exploded with notifications. Alerts from news sites, messages from colleagues, clips posted by passengers. One headline blinked across her screen. "Black CEO removed from first-class seat after white passenger complaints." Her chest tightened. "Oh my God, Malcolm, what did they do to you?" Inside the airline's crisis room, executives scrambled. A public relations officer snapped, "Issue a statement now. Say the passenger refused crew instructions." Another replied, "Don't mention race." But the video is everywhere. Deny everything. It will fade. But nothing was fading. In a stark holding room, Malcolm sat perfectly still, a tissue pressed to his lip. An officer approached him awkwardly. "We didn't mean for it to escalate. We were just following protocol." Malcolm looked him straight in the eyes. "One day," he said softly, "you'll face a moment where protocol and morality won't agree. I hope you choose the right side." Outside, his phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from family, friends, journalists, investors. Then a text from Maya. "You're on every news channel. This is bigger than we thought." He closed his eyes. He had spent his entire life fighting to be defined by his work, not his skin. Yet it was this humiliation, not his innovation, not his achievements, that forced the world to notice. Somewhere across Arden City, a retired executive named Henry Stroud, Malcolm's mentor, watched the viral footage replay on his tablet. His voice trembled as he whispered to himself, "They have no idea what they just awakened." That evening, Malcolm sat across from federal investigators in a sterile room. He answered every question calmly. No anger, no bitterness. Only a quiet resolve building behind his eyes. When they finally released him just after sunset, he stepped into the rain. The city lights blurred through the wet pavement, reflecting the bruise forming along his brow. He whispered to himself, not in pain, but in promise. They thought they were silencing me. They were wrong. The rain had not stopped. It drummed against the windows of the Harbor Line downtown hotel where Dr. Malcolm Reeves sat alone, a towel pressed lightly against his cut lip. His shirt, once crisp white, was now stained brown from dried blood. He looked like a man who had weathered a storm, not one he asked for, but one forced upon him. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it. The world outside the glass was awake, restless, angry, and all of it was aimed at Aero Vista Airlines. Because of him, clips of the incident now spiraled across every social platform. 30 seconds here, 20 seconds there, each angle showing the same truth. A calm black man dragged like a threat for refusing to surrender a seat he paid for. The first hashtag appeared at 6:58 p.m. By 10 p.m., it owned the internet. Seat 1A, Peter Justice. For Malcolm, Aero Vista exposed millions watched. Millions shared, millions commented. Yet Malcolm sat in silence, his expression unreadable, like a man making peace with a memory he knew he would never erase. Over in her apartment, Maya Dalton tried to steady her voice as she spoke to yet another reporter. He wasn't disruptive. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't doing anything except sitting in the seat he purchased. Her voice cracked on the last word, because she had seen the video too. The moment his head struck the bin, the moment he closed his eyes, the moment blood hit the floor. Her hands trembled. A person shouldn't have to bleed to prove they weren't a threat. At exactly 10:42 p.m., Aero Vista Airlines released a public statement. The passenger was removed for failing to comply with crew instructions. Safety is our top priority. 13 words, cold, lifeless, hollow. Within minutes, the backlash exploded. Safety from what? We all watched the video. This is discrimination dressed as policy. A popular journalist tweeted, Aero Vista didn't remove a threat. They removed a man they didn't want sitting in 1A. It hit 5 million views in an hour. Stock analysts called Aero Vista's shares radioactive. Activists called for nationwide boycotts. Civil rights groups demanded federal intervention. And Malcolm? He just watched quietly, not with pride, but with an ache deeper than the bruise on his brow. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. On the screen appeared attorney Lyle Kendrick, a civil rights lawyer known for tearing discriminatory institutions apart. Politely, Malcolm, Lyle said, I'm guessing sleep isn't on your schedule tonight. It hasn't been for a while, Malcolm replied. Lyle leaned in. They messed up, Malcolm. They messed up bad. You didn't resist. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't touch anyone. You were sitting in your own seat, and the whole country just saw what happened when you refused to bow. Malcolm looked down. I'm not chasing revenge, Lyle. I know. Lyle softened his tone. You never do, but this time, justice isn't knocking. It's kicking the door down, and you're the one standing in front of it. Malcolm exhaled slowly. Then we do this the right way. Lyle nodded. With evidence, with law, with truth. Across the city, in a dimly lit diner near Arden University, a man watched the viral clip replay on a tablet. His silver hair caught the glow of the screen. His eyes watered, not from the steam of his coffee, but from what he saw. Henry Stroud, former airline executive, Malcolm's mentor, a man who knew too much about how corporate systems hid ugly truths beneath polished, mission statements. He whispered to himself, "You did the right thing, Malcolm," but they don't realize the storm they've summoned. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. Thin, sealed, dangerous inside were documents he had been holding on to for years. Documents he never thought he'd use. Documents he feared would one day become necessary. That day had come. At AeroVista headquarters in North Arbor, Illinois, chaos reigned. PR officials screamed. Board members panicked. The CEO, Sharon Klein, stared at the screens in disbelief. "Why is that video still spreading?" she barked. "Ma'am," a young communications manager stammered, "it's being re-uploaded every few seconds. We can't remove it." "Then issue another statement." "What should it say?" Sharon hesitated. "Say, we're reviewing all facts." That will sound like an admission. Then deny it. A senior advisor stepped forward. "Sharon, the public isn't buying corporate language anymore. Not after the footage we all just saw." She glared at him. "Do you have a better idea?" He didn't. No one did, because this wasn't a crisis. It was a reckoning. The holding room replay. Back in the sterile holding room hours earlier, Malcolm had sat with an ice pack pressed gently to his forehead. The officer across from him shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't mean for you to get hurt," the officer said. Malcolm tilted his head. "I know you didn't mean it, but meaning isn't the same as responsibility." The officer looked down. "Honestly, you weren't doing anything wrong. We all saw that." "Then why did you drag me out?" Malcolm asked. The officer swallowed. "Orders." Malcolm's eyes softened, not with sympathy, but with understanding. "Orders are easy," he said. "Doing what's right is harder." The officer had no answer. At 11:53 p.m., Malcolm's phone buzzed again. "Maya, you're everywhere. Every news channel. Every feed. This isn't just a video anymore. People are calling you a symbol." Malcolm sighed quietly. He never wanted to be a symbol. He wanted to be a man going to a meeting. A man sitting in seat 1A. A man treated with basic respect. But destiny has a way of choosing people who don't choose it. Near midnight, Malcolm stepped out onto the hotel balcony. Rain misted against his face. The city lights shimmered like fractured stars. He whispered to the night, "I didn't ask for this fight." He closed his eyes. "But I won't run from it." He tightened the towel against his lip, not in pain but in determination. Everything in his life, every injustice, every barrier, every quiet moment of endurance, had led him here to this storm, to this moment, to this choice, and he was done being silent. The next morning came without sunlight. A thick gray sky hung over Arden City, as if the weather itself sensed what was about to unfold. Dr. Malcolm Reeves sat at the small table in his hotel room, untouched breakfast cooling beside him. He wasn't hungry. His mind was too busy replaying every second of the previous day. He looked into the mirror. His lip was swollen, his right temple bruised, his eyes tired, but sharp. He wasn't a broken man. He was a man waking up. His phone buzzed. "Maya, you need to see this. Another angle of the video just surfaced. It shows everything." He tapped the link. The footage loaded. This time, a college student sitting behind him had recorded the entire confrontation. From the moment the entitled passenger demanded the seat, to the captain's cold ultimatum, to the brutal yank that sent Malcolm's forehead into the overhead bin. The room fell silent as the sound of his own groan echoed through the replay. Then the comments flew up the screen. "He barely moved. Why did security get physical? He didn't even raise his voice. They dragged him like he was dangerous. This is discrimination in HD." He set the phone down and exhaled, not out of pain, but clarity. By noon, Malcolm's penthouse became a headquarters. Maya arrived first, carrying her laptop, 3 folders, and a look of disbelief. "This new video changes everything," she said. "The narrative is shifting in your favor. Fast." A moment later, the elevator dinged. Attorney Lyle Kendrick stepped out, wearing a navy blazer and a face that belonged on the front page of a legal magazine. He dropped 2 thick binders onto the marble countertop. 37 prior complaints, he said, all against AeroVista, all involving passengers of color, and every single one was resolved internally. Maya blinked. 37? That we can find, Lyle corrected. There are probably more buried deeper. Malcolm felt a slow fire building in his chest. How long has this been happening? He asked. Lyle looked him dead in the eye. Longer than you think. As they sifted through documents and statements, Malcolm's phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number appeared. Unknown. I was on your flight. I'm a crew member. I need to speak to you. There's something you don't know. Malcolm's eyebrows lifted slightly. He showed the message to Lyle. This could be huge, the attorney said, but it could also be bait. Maya nodded. Aerovista might be trying to trick you into saying something they can use. Malcolm stared at the message a moment longer. No, he said quietly. Someone's scared, and scared people don't write long messages. They write short ones. He typed back. Malcolm, where can we meet? Meanwhile, inside the towering glass headquarters of Aerovista Airlines, panic spread like wildfire. CEO Sharon Klein paced back and forth in her corner office, her heels clicking like warning shots. We need to get ahead of this, she barked. Her communications director cleared his throat. The problem, ma'am, is that every new angle of the video is worse than the last, and there's public suspicion. Suspicion of what? Sharon snapped. The director hesitated. Of a hidden internal system that prioritizes white VIP complaints? The room fell silent. Sharon's voice dropped dangerously low. No one outside this building knows about that. A younger executive whispered, Are we sure about that? This is a leak waiting to happen. Sharon stared him down. And if it does leak? The young executive swallowed hard. Then we're not just facing PR backlash, we're facing federal investigation. Sharon looked out the window at the city skyline. We deny everything, she said, and we bury whatever we must. But some things don't bury, some things surface, especially when the nation is looking. Across town, Henry Stroud, Malcolm's mentor, sat in his study. The walls lined with shelves of dusty aviation books and framed certificates. His tablet replayed the footage for the 10th time. He rubbed his forehead, distressed. Protocol, he muttered. They always hide behind that word. On his desk lay an envelope, the one he'd taken from his coat the night before. Inside were internal memos he had kept from his days as Aerovista's senior operations strategist. Memos that referenced a secret term, passenger comfort index. A coded system, a quiet tool, a subtle method of moving certain passengers based on previous feedback from priority flyers. Henry whispered, If this ever comes out, it will tear the industry open. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Lyle Kendrick speaking. Lyle, Henry said, it's time. That evening, Malcolm waited in a quiet, dim cafe near Ridgewell Park. He sat in a corner booth, hood up, cap low, trying not to draw attention. At 9:14 p.m., the door opened. A woman stepped inside, soaked from the drizzle outside. Her hands trembled as she scanned the room. When she spotted Malcolm, she hesitated, then rushed over and slid into the seat across from him. I don't have long, she whispered. If they find out, you're safe here, Malcolm said calmly. Her breaths came fast, uneven. My name is, well, you can call me Aaron. I was a senior flight attendant on your plane. She swallowed hard. I need you to know, you were targeted. Malcolm's fingers tightened around his cup. Targeted how? She looked around nervously, then leaned closer. There's a list, she whispered, a system we're trained to follow, even though no one admits it exists. Malcolm didn't blink. Go on. It's called the PCI, Passenger Comfort Index. It's not in the manuals. It's not in the public training, but we all know about it. Her voice shook. Certain VIPs, mostly wealthy, older, long-standing members, can flag people they've complained about in the past. Flag them for what? Her eyes met his. For being uncomfortable to sit near. A chill ran through Malcolm. And I was on that list? She nodded slowly. The passenger who wanted your seat, Mr. Hargrove, he's flagged numerous times. He doesn't like sitting next to black men. She paused. I'm so sorry. We're told to act like it's about cabin harmony, but we all know what it means. Malcolm leaned back, absorbing every word. You have proof? Erin reached into her coat and slid a tiny flash drive across the table. Training emails, internal docs, a copy of the PCI roster. Her eyes glistened with fear. It's all on there. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Malcolm placed a hand over the drive. You just changed everything. The flash drive sat in the center of the table like a loaded weapon. Small, silent, unassuming, but capable of detonating an entire industry. Dr. Malcolm Reeves held it between his fingers, feeling the weight of something far heavier than plastic and metal. Across from him, Erin, the trembling flight attendant who risked her entire career, watched with a mixture of fear and relief. You understand what this means, right? She whispered. Malcolm nodded. It means the truth isn't just whispered anymore. It's recorded. Erin's eyes filled with tears she fought to hide. They'll try to find me, she said. They'll fire me, maybe blacklist me, but I couldn't live with myself if I stayed quiet after what they did to you. Malcolm's voice softened. You didn't just help me, Erin. You helped everyone who's ever been moved, threatened, or silenced on a plane. She exhaled shakily. I hope so, she whispered, then quickly left the cafe, disappearing into the drizzle-soaked night. Malcolm slid the flash drive into his coat pocket like a man tucking away a sacred relic. The world was about to change. The folders appeared on screen instantly. PCI_training, priority seating unlisted, escalation protocols, VIP_behavior_notes, internal alerts. Maya leaned forward, her breath caught halfway in her chest. Open it, she whispered. Lyle clicked the PCI folder. Rows of entries flooded the screen. Thousands of names, thousands of ratings, thousands of coded flags. Malcolm scanned them until his stomach tightened. Next to some passengers were notes like, prefers distance from black males. VIP discomfort around Middle Eastern passengers. Responds negatively to passengers with strong accents. Avoid seating near large black men. Past complaints filed. Maya covered her mouth. Oh my God. Lyle clicked another tab. Priority seating unlisted. A list of instructions appeared. Quiet, untraceable, designed so plausible deniability always existed. Reassign if high-value passenger indicates discomfort. Use crew discretion. Do not document in passenger logs. Maintain narrative of safety and compliance if questioned. Malcolm's jaw tightened. This is discrimination dressed up as customer service, he said. It's more than that, Lyle added. It's systematized bias. Institutionalized racism woven into flight procedures. Maya whispered, they built a doorway for prejudice, and then pretended not to see what walked through. Lyle pointed to one entry specifically, passenger, Hargrove, Daniel. Status, Platinum VIP. Notes, easily distressed by certain demographics. Previous complaints, 7. Recommendation, prioritize seating flexibility to maintain calm. Malcolm stared at the screen. That's the man who demanded my seat. Maya shook her head in disbelief. So they didn't just remove you to appease him. They removed you because the system trained them to. That's exactly what happened, Lyle said grimly. Malcolm clenched his fists. They built a quiet algorithm that made my existence inconvenient. The next morning, a journalist from a local investigative outlet received an anonymous leak, the first file from the flash drive. No one knew who sent it, not Malcolm, not Lyle, not Maya. But it spread like wildfire. Within hours, headlines flooded the country. Internal documents reveal Aerovista's secret passenger rating system. Hidden racial bias, PCI, scandal rocks airline industry. CEO Sharon Klein faces possible federal investigation. Newscasters spoke with urgency. This is the most explosive aviation scandal in modern history. Experts say the PCI system may violate multiple civil rights laws. Social media is calling for immediate government intervention. People in airports across the country whispered to each other. Did you see this? Is this why they moved me last year? That explains everything. My cousin complained about this exact thing. The country was no longer asking whether something went wrong. It was now asking, how long has this been happening, and who else was targeted? Inside Aerovista headquarters in North Arbor, Panic mutated into full-blown chaos. CEO Sharon Klein stormed into the crisis room, slamming the printed leak onto the table. "Who released this?" she demanded. No one answered. "Who had access to this file?" she shouted. Silence. Finally, the chief technology officer spoke, trembling. "Every senior crew trainer, some regional managers, a few IT supervisors." Sharon's eyes widened. "Do you realize what this looks like? This isn't just bad optics. This is federal crime territory." Her PR director cleared his throat. "We need a new statement." "Which will say what?" Sharon snapped. "That we secretly labeled passengers by race?" The director swallowed hard. "Ma'am, even if we deny this, the public already believes it." Sharon sank into her chair, eyes hollow. "This could destroy us." The director nodded. "It might already have." The leak had gone global. News trucks gathered outside the building. Protesters held signs. Reporters shouted his name. Flashing lights flickered through the windows like strobe lights in a storm. But inside the penthouse, Malcolm sat quietly on the couch. Maya approached him. "You okay?" she asked softly. Malcolm exhaled. "I've been waiting for the truth to surface my whole life," he said. "I just didn't expect it to happen like this." Maya nodded slowly. "This is bigger than you now." He looked at her. "I know." Then his phone lit up. Incoming call. Henry Stroud. He answered. Henry's gravelly voice filled the room. "Malcolm, I have something else you need to see." "What is it?" Henry hesitated. "Records from when the PCI system was first created. Memos signed by the board, including one from Klein." Malcolm froze. "You have that?" "I knew this day would come," Henry said quietly, "and I kept everything." Malcolm's pulse quickened. "This will expose the root," he said, "not just the symptom." Henry replied, "You're not just fighting for your seat anymore. You're fighting for everyone who's ever been told they didn't belong." Malcolm closed his eyes, the weight of history settling on his shoulders. "Then let's burn the entire system into the light." The file Henry promised arrived at 2:17 p.m. A single email. No subject line, no greeting, just one attachment. Origins _of PCI.pdf. Dr. Malcolm Reeves stared at it for several seconds, feeling the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Across the room, Maya hovered in suspense, while Lyle Kendrick tightened his tie and crossed his arms, a posture he adopted whenever the truth turned dangerous. "Open it," Maya whispered. Malcolm clicked. The file unfolded. At the top of the page, Aerovista Airlines. Internal Operations Draft. Confidential. Dated March 12, 2007, 2 decades old, Lyle muttered. Then came the headers. Subject, Enhancing VIP Comfort Protocols. Objective, reduce sensitivity-triggered escalations among priority passengers. Proposed tool, Passenger Comfort Index, PCI. Malcolm's eyes darkened. He scrolled. The first paragraph struck like a punch. Certain demographics statistically create higher discomfort among high-value clientele. Discrete preemptive seating adjustments could mitigate tension and improve VIP satisfaction. Maya's breath caught. "They actually wrote that," she said, stunned. "Not just wrote it," Lyle added. "They treated discrimination like customer service optimization." Malcolm's jaw tightened as he continued reading. A highlighted section outlined the creation of comfort tiers. Tier A, VIP assurance. Always accommodate. Tier B, quiet conflicts. Offer upgrades or reassignments without documentation. Tier C, potentially triggering passengers. Avoid seating near Tier A clients. The phrase potentially triggering passengers practically vibrated off the screen. "What the hell does that even mean?" Maya asked, her voice sharp. Lyle answered grimly. "It means anyone their VIPs complained about. Anyone whose presence bothered them. Anyone who didn't fit their unspoken profile of who belongs in first class." Malcolm scrolled further. Then he froze. Because there it was, a signature block. Not typed, not forged, not anonymous. Signed, Sharon Klein, Vice President of Operations, now CEO. The room fell silent. Maya spoke first. This is the nail in the coffin." Lyle nodded slowly. This is intentional discrimination, embedded into corporate policy, approved at the highest level. Malcolm leaned back in his chair. I knew they wronged me, he said softly, but I didn't know they built an entire system to do it. News of the leaked training documents hadn't even cooled when the next eruption hit. The Origins file spread online within 30 minutes. Someone, likely an activist hacker or a sympathetic employee, had forwarded it to a major investigative journalist. It exploded across the nation, every network cut into regular programming. Breaking news, new leaks tie Aerovista CEO to discriminatory passenger system. PCI system approved by leadership, documents show. Lawmakers demand answers. Social media exploded. One tweet went viral instantly. This wasn't bad judgment. This was built bias, decades old. Airports across the country turned chaotic, not with protests but with questions. Passengers demanded airlines reveal whether similar systems existed elsewhere. Ticket counters were overwhelmed with angry travelers. Civil rights groups announced emergency press conferences. The public no longer saw Malcolm as just a victim. They saw him as a mirror reflecting a system they had long suspected but could never prove. Inside Aerovista headquarters, everything was falling apart. CEO Sharon Klein stared at the massive screens in the crisis room. Every headline flashed her name. Every debate panel discussed her memo. Every news anchor dissected her signature. She slammed her fist on the table. I want to know who had access to that file. Her CTO shifted nervously. Technically, every operations VP from the last 15 years. Some regional managers, a few compliance officers. Sharon glared at him. I trusted that archive to be sealed. The CTO slowly shook his head. Nothing stays sealed during a scandal. Not anymore. Sharon grabbed her phone and dialed a number furiously. We need a new statement, she barked. Something strong, something that shifts the blame. The PR director stepped forward cautiously. Sharon, the public won't accept excuses. The evidence is clear. She narrowed her eyes. Then make it unclear. The PR director swallowed hard. A denial might make things worse, Sharon snapped. Then make it vague. Say the document is misinterpreted. Say it's a draft never implemented. But the roster shows it was implemented. Her voice grew cold. Destroy the roster. The CTO's voice cracked. It's already online. Sharon's shoulders sagged. What do we do now? No one had an answer, because for the first time in her career, Sharon Klein was facing the truth. She wasn't controlling this crisis. She was drowning in it. Back in his study, Henry Stroud watched interviews swirl across the media. He knew exactly what would happen next. He called Malcolm again. Are you ready for the next wave? Henry asked. What wave? Malcolm responded. Henry sighed. The corporate machine never dies quietly. They will attack your character. They will magnify any past mistake. They will twist even your silence into guilt. Maya, overhearing the call, sat down on the couch. What do we do? She asked. Henry answered without hesitation. You don't play defense, you play offense. Malcolm asked, what does that mean? It means you go public before they do. You hold a press conference. You share the file. You speak the truth, loud and clear. Malcolm rubbed the bridge of his nose. I didn't ask to become the face of this. Henry sighed softly. No one ever asks. Rosa didn't ask. Medgar didn't ask. Colin didn't ask. He paused. But when history chooses you, you don't whisper, you roar. Malcolm stared out the window. Cars honked. Crowds chanted. Cameras flashed. He knew Henry was right. I'll speak, Malcolm said, but I won't speak alone. At 5:42 p.m., while preparing for the press briefing, Malcolm's phone buzzed again. Unknown number, he answered. Dr. Reeves, this is Congresswoman Alana Pierce. We've reviewed the leaked documents, and we want you to testify. Malcolm's heart pounded. Testify? Where? The U.S. Committee on Transportation, Civil Rights, and Consumer Protections. We want you to tell the nation exactly what happened on record, under oath. Malcolm didn't speak at first. Then, I'll be there. The Congresswoman added one more thing. And Dr. Reeves, this isn't just about an airline. It's about every system that hides discrimination behind procedure. You're about to change more than aviation. The call ended. Maya looked at him. What did she say? Malcolm exhaled slowly. She said, it's bigger than we thought. The city felt louder than usual. Horns echoed across the wet streets below Malcolm's penthouse. News vans crowded the curb. Protesters held umbrellas and handmade signs. Photographers stood on ladders, each waiting for the moment Malcolm would step outside. The world wasn't just watching him anymore. It was waiting for him. Inside, the air felt tight with anticipation. Maya clicked through emails faster than she could read them. Lyle shuffled papers, building the legal foundation for what was coming. Assistants and volunteers moved between rooms, setting up equipment. A press conference would begin in under an hour. Malcolm Reeves, the man dragged bleeding through an airport aisle, was about to speak for the first time since the incident, but right now he stood in the bathroom, looking at himself in the mirror. He touched the bruise above his right eye. The swelling had darkened to a deep purple. His lips, still tender, carried a thin line of healing. His face looked bruised, broken, and exhausted. But his eyes, they were steady, resolute. He straightened his tie and adjusted his jacket. He wanted to look composed, not for vanity, but for the millions who would see themselves in his story. Maya knocked lightly. You ready? She asked. He nodded once. Let's do this. A podium had been set up in the penthouse's main living area, positioned in front of tall glass windows that revealed the gray skies of Arden City behind him. Rows of chairs lined the floor. Reporters filled every seat and then some. Camera lights glared. Microphones pointed toward the podium like weapons of truth. The moment Malcolm stepped into the room, a wave of murmurs spread like ripples in water. There he is. That's him. He looks calm. He looks ready. Malcolm walked slowly to the podium. Every step felt like stepping into a new chapter of his life, one he had never imagined writing. Maya and Lyle stood at his side. Silent pillars. Malcolm touched the sides of the podium. The room hushed. Even the protesters outside seemed to pause. Thank you all for being here. His voice was steady, firm, controlled. I won't take long, but I need to speak clearly. He took a breath. 5 days ago, I boarded Aerovista Airlines Flight 219, carrying a first-class ticket for Seat 1, ARA seat I paid for, a seat I selected. Reporters leaned forward. I sat in that seat peacefully. I said nothing disrespectful. I raised no voice. I followed every instruction. A murmur swelled through the room. But another passenger demanded that I give up my seat, and when I declined, something every person in this room has the right to do, something escalated. His eyes did not waver. And I was dragged through an aisle like a criminal for sitting in my seat. Even the cameras seemed quieter now. Malcolm continued. What happened to me was humiliating, but what we've learned since is terrifying. He held up a printed page, the original PCI memo. This is Aerovista's Passenger Comfort Index, a system built in 2007 to quietly adjust seating based on VIP complaints. He tapped the page. This system was approved and signed by senior leadership, including the current CEO. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It classifies passengers by subjective comfort levels, many of which are rooted in racial and demographic bias. It trains staff to move certain people, like me, to satisfy others. He paused, letting the weight settle. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was policy. Cameras flashed like lightning. Malcolm lifted a second document. This roster shows exactly how it was used. Passengers flagged by race, by accent, by appearance, by discomfort rooted in prejudice. He placed the documents onto the podium. This is not just an airline problem. This is an American problem. Reporters scribbled furiously. Malcolm leaned in slightly, voice low but strong. There are thousands of people who have been quietly moved, downgraded, or removed from flights for the comfort of a privileged few, without ever knowing why. His jaw tightened. And I won't let it continue. The room erupted. Reporters shouted over each other. Dr. Reeves, do you believe the PCI system is racist? Will you pursue legal action? Is Aerovista the only airline using this? What happens next? Do you want the CEO to resign? Are you prepared for retaliation? Malcolm held up a hand. The room quieted. I'm not here seeking revenge, he said. I'm seeking accountability, transparency, and change. He pointed to Lyle Kendrick. My attorney will address the legal actions we're taking, but for now I want one thing clear. His voice deepened. I will testify before Congress, and I will show them every piece of evidence we've gathered. The reporters paused, because this wasn't a soundbite. It was a declaration. And once this reaches Washington, Malcolm continued, this won't be about me anymore. This will be about every passenger who ever felt invisible in a system that never saw them as equal. He stepped back from the podium. Cameras clicked madly. Maya whispered, "You did it." But Malcolm's eyes drifted to the window. Crowds waved signs outside. Justice for Malcolm. End biased boarding. No more secret lists. He turned to Lyle. This is only the beginning. Across town, Aerovista's boardroom descended into chaos as the live broadcast played on a wall-sized monitor. CEO Sharon Klein looked pale. Sweat beaded along her hairline. Her hands trembled as she watched Malcolm place her signed memo on the podium for the world to see. The board chairman turned to her slowly. Sharon, is that your signature? She swallowed. Yes, from years ago, but it was a draft. The chairman cut her off. Draft or not, your name is on a discriminatory document, and the entire nation saw it. Another board member added, and he's testifying in D.C. This could turn into a federal investigation. Criminal even. Sharon's voice cracked. I didn't know it would be used like this. The chairman stared at her coldly. You approved the system. Sharon's breath hitched. We can recover. We can fix this. I can go public, and you're done. She blinked. What? The chairman repeated. You're finished. Hand over your badge. Sharon felt the room spin. This company is collapsing under your decisions. Step aside, or we'll remove you forcibly. Sharon lowered her gaze. In one day, she had gone from the top of the aviation world to its most infamous villain. The message replayed in Malcolm's mind long after he put his phone down. I have internal call logs you need to see. The cover-up goes deeper than PCI. Every scandal has layers. But this one? This one felt like a maze built on shadows Maya paced across the penthouse floor. Do you think it's legit? She asked. Lyle crossed his arms, deep in thought. Someone inside Aerovista is panicking, or someone inside doesn't want to go down with the rest of them. Malcolm stared out the window at the swarm of reporters below. We meet them, he said, carefully. The rendezvous point was unsettling, a dim underground parking structure beneath Arden City Financial Plaza. Only a handful of cars, damp concrete, flickering lights, the kind of place where whispered truths were exchanged. Malcolm, Maya, and Lyle walked in silence until they heard footsteps. A man stepped from behind a pillar, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and glasses. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept out of fear, not busyness. You're Dr. Reeves? He asked quietly. Yes, Malcolm replied. Who are you? The man glanced around nervously. Call me Tanner. I'm a senior data analyst at Aerovista headquarters, and I've been watching everything unfold. Lyle studied him carefully. What do you have for us? Tanner held up a small black recorder and a flash drive. This, he said, is the part Aerovista will never admit. He held the recorder tightly. The part that will tear the whole thing open. Maya took a step forward. What's on it? Tanner licked his lips, fear trembling through his voice. Phone recordings, executive calls, meetings, instructions given to department heads the night of your incident. He looked at Malcolm. They weren't trying to do damage control. They were crafting a story. Malcolm's blood ran cold. What kind of story? Tanner lowered his head. One that made you the threat. Back at the penthouse, everyone gathered around the table as Lyle connected the recorder to a secure speaker. Brace yourselves, he warned. The first recording crackled to life. Sharon Klein's voice filled the room. Cold, sharp, shaken. We need to get ahead of this narrative. Emphasize non-compliance. Emphasize safety concerns. Say he raised his voice. Say he resisted. Malcolm's fists clenched. He had done none of that. The next voice belonged to the head of PR. But the video doesn't show that. People on the plane say he was calm. Sharon snapped back. Then find someone who will say otherwise. There's always someone. Maya gasped softly. Oh my God! Another recording played. A senior legal advisor spoke. Ma'am, if we misrepresent facts and he sues, Sharon cut him off. He won't win. He's just one man against a corporation. Silence fell across the room. Malcolm closed his eyes. He had heard racism. He had heard discrimination. But hearing the decision to rewrite his truth, to manufacture a false damaging narrative, felt like a punch to the soul. The final recording hit hardest. If journalists dig into our past complaints, we're finished, Sharon said. So erase whatever you must. Temporarily shut down old records until this burns out. Tanner paused the audio with shaking hands. That's obstruction of justice, Lyle said under his breath. And they said it like they were ordering lunch. Maya wiped her eyes. This isn't just bias, this is criminal. Malcolm's voice was quiet, but firm. There's no going back now. Tanner slid the flash drive toward Lyle. There's more, he whispered. Emails, internal chats, timestamp deletions. It's all there. Malcolm put a hand on Tanner's shoulder. You know they'll come after you for this. Tanner nodded. I know, but my father was kicked off a flight 10 years ago for a reason they never explained. He died last year never knowing why. I think now I understand. His voice broke. I'm tired of watching people like my father get treated like background noise. Malcolm felt the weight of those words settle deep inside his chest. You're safe with us, he said. Tanner managed a weak smile. I hope so. He left through the back stairwell, vanishing into the night. Within an hour, Lyle had assembled a team of civil rights lawyers and digital forensic specialists. Papers scattered across the penthouse table. Laptop screens glowed with evidence. The room buzzed with urgency. This isn't a lawsuit anymore, Lyle said. This is a case the Justice Department will salivate over. Maya pulled up the call logs. They deleted files, she whispered. Lots of them, but every deletion creates a trace. Good, Lyle said. We show the traces. He lifted one folder. This goes way beyond Aerovista. This is the aviation scandal of the century. Malcolm stared at the wall of evidence. His incident had become a catalyst, a spark that revealed a deeper, darker machine hiding behind neatly pressed uniforms and polite flight announcements. He whispered to himself, they tried to bury the truth, but all they did was make it louder. At nearly midnight, Malcolm's phone rang. He recognized the voice instantly. Dr. Reeves, Congresswoman Alana Pierce said, we've received new materials from your legal team. That was fast, Malcolm said. Her voice sharpened with purpose. This isn't just grounds for a hearing. This is grounds for a federal probe, and I want you to understand something. Malcolm listened. This isn't about destroying an airline. It's about exposing a model that might exist in other industries. Quietly, invisibly, dangerously. Malcolm felt a chill. You want to make this national. No, she corrected. We want to make this historic. Before hanging up, she delivered one last message. And Malcolm, get ready. Your testimony will be watched by the entire nation. In the dark boardroom of Aerovista headquarters, panic reached a fever pitch. Sharon Klein slammed her fists onto the table. Who leaked the calls? The CTO trembled. We don't know, but the files have been verified by multiple sources. Congress is already contacting regulators. The head of security added, and we've been ordered to preserve all internal communications. We can't delete anything now, not even bathroom schedules. Sharon's breathing grew ragged. If these recordings get played in Washington, we're finished. A board member whispered, they already did. Sharon froze. What? They aired clips on national news 20 minutes ago. Her face went pale. Her reign was over. Not by competitor, not by failure, but by truth. As dawn approached, Malcolm stood alone on the balcony of his penthouse. Arden's city slept below him, but his mind didn't. He whispered into the cool air. They dragged me out of 1A, now I'll drag their whole system into the light. His phone buzzed. A new message. Be ready. The nation is waiting. The Capitol air felt heavy as the black sedan rolled through the gates of Raventon Hill, the federal district that housed the most influential rooms in America. Gray stone buildings towered like monoliths around Malcolm, their columns echoing the weight of history. Every revolution started somewhere. Today, it started here. Malcolm Reeves sat in the back seat, hands together, eyes narrowed with calm determination. Maya sat beside him, her tablet filled with evidence files. Lyle sat across from him, rehearsing legal points under his breath like a battle prayer. As they approached the entrance of the U.S. Committee on Transportation, Civil Rights, and Consumer Protections, they saw it, a sea of people, thousands, gathered behind barricades, chanting, holding signs, filming on their phones. Justice for Malcolm! No more secret lists! Protect passengers, not VIP egos! Camera crews lined the steps, reporters shouted questions. Flashing lights sparked like miniature thunderstorms. The sedan came to a stop. The door opened, and Malcolm stepped out into a roar of voices that shook the concrete. Every step felt surreal. Maya walked just behind him, touching his shoulder once for reassurance. Lyle stayed at his side, shielding him from the chaotic press line. A journalist shouted, "Dr. Reeves, are you prepared for the airline's defense?" Another yelled, "Do you believe this scandal goes beyond Aerovista?" Malcolm didn't stop, didn't look around, didn't break stride. He walked with the quiet strength of a man who had already survived the worst moment of his life and turned it into something unbreakable. Inside the building, a clerk guided them through metal detectors. "Dr. Reeves," the clerk whispered, "we're all rooting for you." Malcolm nodded in gratitude. Room 402B was massive. High ceilings, dark wood. The American flag stood behind the raised bench where 12 lawmakers sat. Microphones lined the tables. Cameras from national news outlets filled every corner. The world wasn't just watching, it was holding its breath. Congresswoman Alana Pierce, the one who had called him earlier, leaned toward her mic. "We are here today to investigate allegations of systemic discrimination and procedural abuse within Aerovista Airlines." She paused. "And the broader implications this may reveal across the national aviation industry." Her voice cut through the silence. "We begin with Dr. Malcolm Reeves." Malcolm rose. His footsteps echoed across the chamber as he made his way to the witness seat. He sat down, placed his hands on the table, faced the lawmakers. Maya and Lyle sat directly behind him, quiet pillars of support. Congresswoman Pierce leaned forward. "Dr. Reeves, please raise your right hand." He did. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." A hush swept the room. "Proceed with your statement." Malcolm inhaled deeply. "My name is Dr. Malcolm Reeves. I am the founder and CEO of Sentry Shield Cyber Defense. And 5 days ago, I was dragged from seat 1A of an Aerovista Airlines flight for insisting on sitting in the seat I paid for. Every camera zoomed in," he continued. "I did not resist. I did not raise my voice. I did not violate any instruction. I sat silently until I was physically removed." He placed a document onto the table. "This is the Passenger Comfort Index, a system Aerovista has used for nearly 2 decades. A system that classifies passengers by race, appearance, and subjective comfort." One lawmaker adjusted his glasses, stunned. "These documents," Malcolm continued, "show targeted discrimination disguised as policy. They encourage staff to move or remove certain passengers to keep select VIPs comfortable." He glanced up at the committee. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a structured system. The lawmakers exchanged shocked looks. Malcolm placed another stack on the table. "These call logs and recordings, given to my team by a whistleblower, reveal that Aerovista leadership attempted to fabricate a narrative portraying me as non-compliant and threatening. They did so to protect themselves." Gasps filled the room. Congresswoman Pierce folded her hands. "Dr. Reeves, why do you believe this system persisted for so long?" Malcolm met her gaze. "Because when discrimination hides behind polite language, most people don't recognize it. And when it hides behind corporate policy, most people don't question it." Silence. Cameras clicked. Lawmakers took notes furiously. Malcolm continued. "This system affected thousands, not just me. People who were moved, downgraded, or removed without ever knowing why. He leaned closer to the microphone. You don't need chains or slurs to discriminate. Sometimes you just need a policy written by someone who never imagined people like me sitting in 1A. The gallery erupted in murmurs. A congressman cleared his throat. Dr. Reeves, are you asserting that Aerovista's PCI system was intentionally designed to discriminate? Malcolm didn't flinch. Yes, and the evidence supports that. Another congresswoman leaned in. Is it your belief that other airlines may have similar systems? Malcolm paused. I can't say for certain, but when one company creates a tool like this, others tend to copy. That's how industries work. The panel shifted uneasily. Congresswoman Pierce spoke again. Dr. Reeves, what outcome are you hoping for? Malcolm breathed in, slowly. I want transparency. I want accountability, and I want protections for passengers who have no idea they're being evaluated by invisible metrics. His voice deepened. And I want no one, to be dragged across an aisle because their existence made someone else uncomfortable. The room shook with applause from the audience, despite the clerk banging the gavel to restore order. After Malcolm, Aerovista officials were called in. Interim CEO Gregory Vance sat before the committee, stiff, sweaty, and clearly unprepared. Congresswoman Pierce began, Mr. Vance, is the passenger comfort index real? Vance swallowed hard. We're still investigating. She cut him off. Is your signature on training materials referencing it? Well, yes, but... And did your predecessor approve the system? Technically. And did you attempt to delete internal files the night of Dr. Reeves's removal? I cannot confirm. Pierce raised a document. We have call logs confirming it. The room erupted. Vance looked trapped in his own lies. He rubbed his forehead and whispered to his lawyer, This is a disaster. Outside, crowds cheered as the hearing live stream played on massive screens. People cried. People yelled. People hugged strangers. Malcolm's name wasn't just a trending topic. It had become a rallying cry. Across the nation, airlines held emergency meetings. Civil rights groups announced new investigations. Passengers stepped forward with their own stories. And what started with a single viral video had become a national reckoning. Back at the hotel later that night, Maya approached Malcolm. You realize what you did today, right? She asked gently. Malcolm shook his head. I just told the truth. Maya smiled softly. No, you told the truth in a room where lies have lived comfortably for decades. Malcolm looked out the window at the glowing city. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt responsible. His phone buzzed. A congressional aide. Dr. Reeves, the committee has reached out again. They want you back tomorrow. They're drafting emergency aviation legislation, and they want you involved. Malcolm nodded slowly. Tell them I'll be there. He hung up, Maya asked. Now what? Malcolm whispered, Now, we finish what they started when they dragged me off that plane. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains of Malcolm's hotel suite, but it didn't feel warm. It felt sharp, like the world was reminding him he had no room to rest. His mind replayed yesterday's hearing on a loop. The faces of the lawmakers, the gasps in the room, the crack in Aerovista's facade. He had exposed the truth, but the truth didn't finish the fight. It only started it. Maya entered the living room, tablet in hand and voice tight with urgency. Malcolm, you need to see this. She turned on the TV. Every major network ran the same headline. Congress rushes aviation reform after explosive testimony. The anchor sounded breathless. Never before has a single civilian hearing shifted federal action this quickly. Lawmakers are drafting the Passenger Equity and Transparency Act. Regulations could ban unlisted discriminatory metric systems permanently. Maya nodded toward the screen. They're calling it the PETA bill. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. PETA, like the animal group? Maya smirked. Different acronym, same energy. Lyle stepped into the room carrying 2 suitcases filled with files. You're meeting with the bill authors in 90 minutes, he said. And trust me, they're not dragging their feet. They want your fingerprints on every line of this legislation. Malcolm paced slowly, absorbing everything. So this is real, he said. A national law because of what happened in Seat 1A. No, Lyle corrected him, because of what Aero Vista tried to hide. The group arrived at the Committee Policy Annex, a secure, windowless room beneath the Capitol where urgent legislation was born. It wasn't glamorous, no cameras, no microphones, just long tables, legal documents, and lawmakers in rolled-up sleeves. Congresswoman Alana Pierce greeted Malcolm with a firm handshake. "Dr. Reeves, thank you for coming on short notice." Malcolm smiled politely. "You've given me very little warning these past few days." Pierce cracked a quick grin. "You didn't give the country any warning either." Around the table sat legislators from multiple states, some young, some old, some skeptical, some outraged. Stacks of printed pages lay in front of each of them. Pierce tapped the cover page. Passenger Equity and Transparency Act. Draft, Rev 01. "Today," Pierce said, "we write safeguards that should have existed a decade ago." She pointed at Malcolm, then at the draft papers. "And you're helping us design them." A senator from Oregon spoke first. "Dr. Reeves, tell us plainly, what should be illegal?" Malcolm sat forward. "Hidden passenger scoring systems, whether based on race, appearance, accent, or comfort. They need to be banned." A representative from Tennessee leaned in. "And transparency?" Malcolm nodded. "Every passenger deserves to know if they were downgraded, moved, or flagged, and why." Lawmakers scribbled notes. Pierce added, "And if airlines violate this?" Lyle jumped in. "Fines heavy enough to hurt, not PR slaps. Financial consequences that force compliance." Another lawmaker spoke. "What about whistleblower protections?" Maya answered, this time stronger. "Aaron took a life-changing risk giving us those files. Future whistleblowers shouldn't fear losing their entire career." Again, pen scratched. A senator from Maine tossed his pen down. "I'll be honest, I didn't expect to be writing federal aviation reform today." Pierce said, "None of us did." She eyed Malcolm. "But when someone exposes a system built on discrimination, we don't get to wait for the next victim." Not everyone was on board. A congressman from Texas crossed his arms tightly. "Let's slow down," he warned. "Airlines are already calling my office. They're claiming overreach." Pierce didn't blink. "Overreach?" "They created an illegal, discriminatory indexing system. They claim it was to ensure flight harmony." Maya scoffed. "Flight harmony isn't maintained by moving black men away from white VIPs." Silence. The Texas representative shifted uncomfortably. Malcolm leaned forward, unflinching. "If we hesitate, they win. If we let them shape the narrative, they'll call discrimination customer service." The congressman looked around the room, realizing he was outnumbered. He slowly uncrossed his arms. "Fine, I'll cooperate. For now." Pierce gave Malcolm a proud nod. "You're changing minds in real time. 3 hours of edits, 5 rounds of amendments, dozens of tense exchanges. Finally, Pierce placed the final draft on the center of the table. "All in favor of forwarding the Passenger Equity and Transparency Act to the House floor?" Hands rose one by one, left to right, across party lines. Even the Texas representative lifted his. Reluctantly, Pierce smiled. "All opposed?" Silence. Not one hand. It was unanimous. Malcolm leaned back, stunned. It was happening. It was really happening. But while the vote ended here, the battle didn't. Because at the exact same hour, 20 blocks away in a marble conference room inside the National Aviation Alliance, airline CEOs gathered in fury. Interim Aerovista CEO Gregory Vance slammed a folder onto the table. "Do you realize what this bill means?" he yelled. "They're about to regulate us into the ground." A CEO from another major airline spoke. "Maybe we shouldn't have ignored the discrimination complaints." Vance shot him a glare. "You didn't have hidden bias tools? We did. And now your mess is becoming our problem." Vance rubbed his temples. "If that law passes, aviation will change forever." The room grew quiet. None of them wanted change, but change was coming whether they liked it or not. Outside the Capitol, crowds erupted with cheers as word spread. Social feeds exploded. "The PETA bill is moving forward. Historic aviation reform begins today. Dr. Reeves is changing the industry." Videos of Malcolm entering the hearing room circulated again, this time with captions like, "From Seat 1A to Capitol Hill." And in living rooms across America, people whispered the same thing. "It's about time." Back in the hotel suite, Malcolm's phone rang, unknown number. But he answered anyway. "Dr. Reeves?" a shaky voice asked. "Yes." There was a long pause. Then a woman began to cry softly on the other end. "My name is Denise. Denise Hargrove." Malcolm froze. The last name hit him like a brick. "Hargrove," he repeated. She sniffed. "My husband was the man who tried to take your seat. And I've watched what he did and what this uncovered. And I needed to tell you." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry." Malcolm stood silent. Denise continued. "He's been hateful for years. But this time, watching him be the spark for all this, he refuses to apologize, but I will. Because what happened to you was wrong." Malcolm answered softly, "Thank you." It was the only thing he could say. Sometimes apologies come from unexpected places. Sometimes sadness carries truth. Later that evening, Maya, Lyle, and Malcolm gathered by the window overlooking Raventon Hill. The Capitol dome glowed in the distance. "Tomorrow," Maya said quietly, "the bill goes to the House." "And after that?" Malcolm asked. Lyle smiled. "After that, the skies won't belong to the old system anymore." Malcolm pressed a hand to the glass. The city hummed. The world watched. History waited. He whispered, "They dragged me off a plane to silence me, but all they did was give me a microphone." The morning the bill reached the House floor, Raventon Hill felt different. Not tense. Not frantic. Alive. Crowds filled every sidewalk leading toward the Capitol. TV screens were mounted on trucks. Vendors handed out water bottles with "Equity Takes Flight" printed across them. It felt less like a political session and more like a historic march. Malcolm stood in front of the Capitol steps, adjusting his jacket as Maya tied back her hair, and Lyle reviewed briefing notes. "You ready?" Maya asked. Malcolm inhaled slowly. "I don't know if anyone's ever ready for history." Lyle smiled. "History doesn't care about readiness. It cares about moments. And this one belongs to you." A special aide approached them. "Dr. Reeves, the speaker has set aside a viewing box for you. Please follow me." Malcolm nodded, stepped forward, and the world seemed to hold its breath with him. The gallery was packed. Lawmakers, family members, civil rights advocates, aviation experts, journalists scribbling every muttered detail. As Malcolm entered, the room fell silent for a moment. People recognized him. Some nodded respectfully. Some placed hands over their hearts. He sat between Maya and Lyle, overlooking the vast chamber below. Rows of desks, buzzing conversations, and flashing vote terminals. A staffer whispered, "Dr. Reeves, thank you for what you're doing." Malcolm gave a small but sincere smile. Then the gavel struck. The chamber quieted. The Speaker of the House stood tall. "Today we consider the Passenger Equity and Transparency Act, a bill aimed at dismantling discriminatory aviation practices exposed by recent events." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A congresswoman from Illinois rose first. "This isn't just a bill. It's a reflection of who we are as a nation. A man boarded a plane. A man bought a seat. A man followed every rule. And he was still dragged like property. This bill answers that injustice." Applause rolled through the room. Then came opposition. A representative from Arizona stood. "We must be cautious. This bill imposes heavy regulation. Airlines claim—" Pierce stood sharply. "Airlines had 20 years to fix themselves. They chose secrecy. They chose discrimination. They chose silence." The chamber erupted again. Another representative, a gray-haired man from Vermont, spoke gravely. "My own nephew was removed from a flight in 2016 for reasons that never made sense. When I heard Dr. Reeves testify, suddenly it all made sense." He paused, voice cracking. "I vote for clarity. I vote for fairness. I vote for this bill." The debate stretched for hours. Passion, anger, tears, frustration, unity. And Malcolm listened to all of it in silence. As the debate neared its end, Congresswoman Alana Pierce requested the floor. She stood at the center of the chamber like it was a pulpit. "Colleagues," and she said, "behind me sits a man dragged from seat 1A. But this vote is not about him alone. This vote is about the grandmother downgraded without explanation." The immigrant father moved to the back of the plane because someone didn't like his accent. The teenager labeled disruptive because of her skin tone. She pointed to the gallery, directly at Malcolm. He did not wake up intending to become a civil rights figure. He woke up intending to fly home. What we do here today decides whether any of us can trust the skies we travel. The chamber fell into an almost sacred quiet. Pierce raised her hand. "I ask you, do we protect a discriminatory system, or do we protect the people who live under it?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Vote yes." The speaker lifted the gavel. "Members will cast their votes." Lights blinked. Terminals chimed. Representatives pressed buttons across the gallery. Malcolm felt Maya tighten her grip on his arm. "It's happening," she whispered. Below them, names illuminated on the giant voting board. Green for yes, red for no. At first, the colors mixed evenly. A cluster of green, a cluster of red. Then, slowly, green began to spread. A representative flipped his vote from red to green, then another, then another. The chamber buzzed. Journalists typed like piano players in a race. Maya whispered breathlessly, "Come on, come on." Lyle clenched his jaw. "Give us the number. Give us the number." The speaker looked up at the final tally. He struck the gavel. "The Passenger Equity and Transparency Act passes. 318 to 117. The bill moves to the Senate." Malcolm exhaled, deeply, shakily, as cheers erupted across the chamber and spilled into the streets. Outside, people in the gallery stood and applauded him. Some cried, some saluted, some whispered, "Thank you." Malcolm didn't stand. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't make a scene. He simply bowed his head, letting the moment wash over him like rain after a storm. Maya leaned in. "You did it." Malcolm shook his head. "No, we did it." 2 days later, the Senate repeated the process. Another hearing, another debate, another vote. This time, the bill passed with a sweeping majority, 81 to 19. Reporters called it the fastest civil rights legislation passed since 1968. The president signed it the next morning in the East Wing. He handed Malcolm the pen. "Your courage changed the skies," the president told him, "and you changed us." Malcolm stared at the pen. His signature wasn't on the bill, but his story was etched into every page. Within weeks, Aerovista's board forced out its executives. The PCI system was dismantled immediately. A new compliance division was born. Aviation regulators announced nationwide audits. Compensation funds were set up for victims of biased passenger relocation, and news broke that Aerovista's last two CEOs, including Sharon Klein, were under federal investigation for obstruction and discriminatory practices. The company issued its first honest statement. "We failed our passengers, we failed the public, and we failed the values we claim to uphold. We will rebuild transparently and equitably." It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. 3 months later, Malcolm boarded a flight from Arden City to Charlotte for a speaking engagement, first class again. Seat 1A. He paused before sitting, ran his hand across the top of the seat. A flight attendant approached. Not stiff, not rehearsed, but genuine. "Dr. Reeves, it's an honor to have you on board," she said softly. "Because of you, our training changed. Our policies changed. We changed." Malcolm smiled. "Thank you." He sat down and looked out the window. For the first time since the incident, he felt peace at 30,000 feet. Later that night, after landing, Malcolm received an email from Tanner. The whistleblower subject line, "We did it." The message was short. "Passengers will never be judged by secret metrics again. Thank you for not letting the truth die." Malcolm closed his eyes. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't fame. This wasn't victory. It was justice. Real, lasting justice. Months later, when historians wrote about the scandal, they didn't call it the Aerovista crisis. They called it the 1A movement. The seat that started a revolution. The seat that changed aviation. The seat that proved one truth. When they dragged Malcolm off that plane, they lifted a nation with him.